Hi there. Welcome to my first YouTube series. I'm calling it the Pyanodons Hands-Off Hard Mode 300 Challenge, which is absolutely not the name of a new NASCAR race. This is my first time here, so thanks in advance for bearing with me as I get things going. While I give you a quick intro, I'm just doing the early hand-fed burner phase in the background, but that's only a little bit different than regular Factorio. Don't worry, it'll get weirder from here. So let me break this challenge down for you. Pyanodons is a huge overhaul mod pack, the longest and most difficult that exists for Factorio. Production chains are more complex, every recipe is overhauled, and there are thousands of new ones, as well as dozens of new buildings and a few new Pyanodon-specific mechanics. Hard mode for Pyanodon, which I'm going to call Pi for short from now on, makes this more difficult, mostly by making you have to use every byproduct these processes use. In regular Pi, you can void a lot of these byproducts pretty easily so as to not stall out your production, but not so in hard mode, where all of them have to be consumed through various more specific means. Hard mode also adds a bunch of other tweaks, like reduced fuel values and chest sizes to further up the challenge. Hands-off is my own idea. Once I get science going, I'm going to periodically leave the base untouched. At the start, I think 2 hours for every 1 hour of gameplay. This means that every build will have to run untouched, power needs to sustain itself, byproducts have to be dealt with, and I'll count successes and failures by how often I manage to sustain science production over the hands-off session. And finally, 300 is just the tech multiplier I'm playing at. It's pretty crazy. I'm going to admit this is a little bit of a masochistic endeavor, but this will encourage me to maximize ore efficiency and also justifies the hands-off mode because I'm going to have to run it for long periods of time just to deal with UPS issues eventually. So that's the challenge. Mod-wise, I have the full Pi suite with spoilage turned on and some QL mods like Blueprint Shotgun and Sweep Through. A few data mods to let me keep production stats on screen, which you should see up at the top left, and output them to the circuit network. And then a few other bits and bobs like factorio and text plates, which I'll hopefully use to make my base a little bit prettier, but nothing too crazy. I'm not a purist. I may add some more later. I think it's important not to stray too far off into making it easier with additional mods, but I also don't want to give myself an RSI, so I may add a few more later. We'll see. I'll put the full list in the description, and then if I add more, I'll update you. So I wanted to do this challenge for a few different reasons. For one thing, I really love Factorio and Pi, and I wanted to make something that was an excessive challenge and take a shot in making a series out of it. I think that'll also encourage me to actually finish a full Pi run as well. I've gotten through a big chunk of the game, but never quite done. Second, I'm a longtime automation player, so I think I've got some interesting build ideas to show off. You can be the judge of that for yourself. We'll get into those as I hit them. And finally, I've watched a lot of Pi and Factorio content, and while I enjoy it, I didn't see anything that was in my absolutely perfect Goldilocks zones. There are videos like Dosh Doshington's that condense hundreds of hours of play to just a couple hours, which is great, but also too brief for something that like this huge overhaul mod pack. And then on the other hand, there are a lot of streaming style videos where every single second is recorded, which is just too much for me to watch. I think there's ones out there with thousands of hours. Anyway, I want something in the middle where I can show you all the effort and the interesting builds and then talk through all the nuances of the pack, but also fast forward through some of the repetitive portions like chopping trees and laying down belts and setting up builds. And I also just don't think I'm interesting enough to fill all that time with good banter. So you'll see me duck into accelerated time with editing whenever I feel like I might be a bit dull, and hopefully this will work out. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to hop over to the session here and start talking about what I'm actually doing. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I think I'll pick up the live commentary from here. As you can see, I'm just working through the early burner phase. I'm going to assume that everybody who is watching this is at least really familiar with Factorio. Otherwise, you're going to be super lost, and you should get familiar with Factorio because it's an excellent game, and this is going to be hard enough to showcase everything if I have to teach that too. I will assume that people have not played Pyanodons before and definitely haven't played Pyanodons Hard Mode, so I'll talk through a bunch of that. The burner phase looks pretty similar to Factorio, but there are a bunch of key differences. One of the biggest differences here is that the raw coal that you mine from the coal patches instead of regular coal, this is 1.5 megajoules. That's down from 3 megajoules in base Pyanodons. And basically this means that everything is really expensive and creates a lot of ash. So you make ash every time you burn a hydrocarbon, basically any coal, regular raw coal. There's a few other different types, coke. You're going to make ash, and ash stacks to 1,000, but will easily clog up your machines because look, like already I have this stacked up to 160. These miners, I think, take about maybe 40 minutes to build up a giant coal stack, something like that. The second big change is that infrastructure is expensive compared to Factorio. So it really pays, and this is one thing that I love about Pyanodons, it really pays to build efficiently. So that's why, you know, even for this hand phase, I'm kind of thinking about, like, how do I get it done pretty cheaply? Like, I'm not going to come back to this coal thing all the time, but the furnaces last for significantly longer since they only use up 200 kilowatts versus 500 kilowatts. So I'm going to just feed the miners here with raw coal from a box where I'm just going to let the furnaces use their internal storage. And here's another difference, and this one is a hard mode specific thing, I think. Copper mining requires water, so you instantly have to start pumping water into these mines, and it also means that automating the copper, when I start putting down belts, that's going to be more challenging. But it also leads to something really fun, which I like about Pyanodons Hard Mode especially. All the early burner phase mining setups are slightly different per patch. So, for instance, when I go back up to set up automation at the very beginning for the coal patch, I'm going to use one pattern for mining. And then for the iron, I'm going to use a different pattern. And then for the copper, I have to use a different pattern. And then stone is going to be the last one. Stone needs carbolic acid. Carbolic acid. Yeah, I think it's carbolic acid. Carbolic oil. There we go. And that uses a slightly different pattern than even the copper. And the reason it uses a different pattern is because it mines stone and kerogen at the same time. And you can use kerogen to fuel the burner mining drills. So anyway, I have to keep, oh, I even let it overrun here. I have to keep grabbing it because even with these boxes that I'm using to store off some of the raw coal, these boxes will fill up in 2 minutes. So this early phase is very frenetic. You get to go pick up a bunch of supplies and put them down and start building automation. And yeah, I really enjoy this. That said, I am not a YouTubing professional. I don't think I'm going to mesmerize you with my amazing banter. I think that I'm probably going to be jumping into and out of time dilation quite a bit because I want to showcase the builds. I want to show, I want to teach all the little nuances, but at the same time, playing at x300 tech multiplier, there's going to be a lot of downtime. Even the times that I'm building, not the times that I'm just putting the game and letting it run by itself. There's going to be a bunch of, like, I'm running around and chopping trees. I'm running around and gathering stone. That's pretty boring, and I don't have this amazing life story that I want to share with you or that you will be interested in during this time. So, that said, I think I have managed to BS my way enough through to the point where I've got the resources to do my first mining pattern for raw coal. Let's see where I want to put it. I will probably put it someplace over here. That looks good. But yeah, this is the raw coal mining blueprint that I'm going to use. Raw coal, since it can feed itself, that's why it has its own special, and it doesn't need a fluid. That's why it has its own special pattern that I'm going to use. Actually, I think I'm going to run down and give myself some copper, put some fuel in my copper while I build some belts and do the other things. Then I will go up there and show you that blueprint. That's another thing that I think I'm going to be very bad at with this playthrough. I'm going to be terrible at maintaining a consistent, whatchamacallit, a consistent through line with my thoughts. Because just like Factorio encourages you to like kind of think, oh, well, I got this thing done, and then I'm going to go back up and no, actually, I need to do this other thing. Well, then I'll work on that. No, actually, I need to get this other thing done before I can do the second thing to get the third thing done. That's the way my thought patterns work a lot of the time when playing this game. And it leads to some really pretty terrible commentary. So I will either try and skill up, get good, and not be such a terrible YouTuber, or I will force you to listen to this inane banter of mine and yeah, make it your issue. No, I probably will not try and make it your issue. I will try and just be a good presenter. So let me fill in this pattern real quick while I yes. And I will talk to you about why I think this is a good pattern to use for raw coal mining. Because there's a whole bunch of them. Like, I've seen people playing Pyanodons use, like, this massive number of different patterns for how they set up their mining. I'm using this one for raw coal for a few different reasons. One, it's pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, I have to alternate these miners back and forth, and that's a little bit annoying. Not the easiest thing in the world, but it's not too bad. And then I have to kind of fill in these inserters, which actually you can use a little trick. Like you can, only going to fill in the ones that feed rock coal back into the miners. I'm not going to fill in the ash extraction ones. I need to put in that one too. This one. Because I don't have any way to process the ash right now. And until I get a way to process the ash, I'm just going to let the ash build up inside the miners. But you can use this trick of taking the blueprint you've got and repasting it here, and that'll flip the inserters around in the correct direction. And that will mean that you can put the inserters in whatever direction you want and build even faster. I do have to kickstart this. I'll have to feed a little bit of rock coal here at the top. But once that's done, I should be able to live off the rock coal supplies that I've already mined and let that get going. Now, so it's straightforward to build. It offers not only full coverage, like when I paste another one here. Oops. Oh, there it is. When I paste another one here, it will completely cover the area between where the belts are. But it's actually a little bit denser than that. It's I think it's like one miner for every 12 squares. So it gives you a lot of mining potential. It will fill up the belts once I built all the last bits of these. Okay. I guess one of these inserters didn't get flipped around. Maybe my trick didn't work, actually. I'll have to double check that. Anyway. These two have to run, so I'm going to use a little trick later to make sure that these are always running. This miner is feeding rock coal back essentially to this front one, and this front one powers the second one, and then once rock coal is on both lines, it will feed it all the way down. And then you get a belt of rock coal down here. And while I'm talking, all my miners have run out of gas. And I think I built this slightly too low, so I'm going to fix that. Bunch of line across here. Oh. I almost got it perfect on the first try, which surprises me. I have restarted this a couple of times because I was like, oh, I sound like an idiot. I should really redo this, but I will have to get used to sounding like an idiot because I'm going to try and do quite a bit of these videos. I'm not going to be able to go back and fix it and post all the time. But yeah. Cool. Where's my coal? Oh. there it is. There we go. One of the reasons I built in this pattern early on is that I can just knock out these, and then put down another belt there. And then I'll be able to feed in my raw coal off of this belt, which I will need a couple more inserters. Ooh, I must be out of copper. Let me go grab some copper. Hopefully these are still running. Yes, they're still running. Fill up these boxes. Okay, I should have some copper here available. Yeah, plenty. Okay, and let's get some inserters going. So, as I was saying, backtracking to where I was before, which is going to be a common motif, I can take some raw coal off this belt, then I can feed it into these and power these machines, and then I'll be able to extract the belts here. Now, it's important to set up a filter here so you don't take out the fuel. For whatever reason, in Pyanodons, the fuel can be passed around. So you could, for instance, like if you had 2 miners set up like this and you didn't have direct access to a belt, you could fuel one miner to the other just like that. And it would take just like a lab, for instance, you can pass around the technology, you can fuel your miners like this. I'm not going to do that, but it also means that when you're extracting a product from a furnace or from a miner in a second, when I set up ash extraction from this, it's going to mean that you have to use filters. On the other hand, you get filters immediately, so everything's hunky-dory there, and yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enter some time dilation and get this like very basic iron plate automation going. It's going to be very straightforward and simple, and you'll see how it works after I get out of it, but it's also me being trying to be a good YouTuber and just doing entertaining things for you. So yeah, see you in a minute. Okay, this is a place for me to hop back out of accelerated time. I've got this very basic iron smelting going, and this is not even the final version of the very interim pattern of iron mining. This is just an easy way to get some iron mining going because it direct feeds the furnaces from the miners and means a little bit less inserters that I have to make. Inserters, just like everything else, are much more expensive in Pyanodons. So there are 10 plates total for just one mechanical inserter. On the other hand, mechanical inserters do not use coal, so they're just essentially free and are going to be used a lot for a long time. So yeah, gotta love these mechanical inserters. But yeah, this gives me a pretty good amount of iron plate making, and will let me move on to doing the next thing, which is to go automate copper plates. And that would be like the first early milestone, getting copper plates and iron plates automated. So let's go down here and work on some copper plates. This can get a little bit funky because, as I mentioned, this requires water to mine. But like I said, it's really fun to have a lot of different patterns that you have to develop for mining. I'm going to show you what I do with this one in just a sec. because I will be doing a lot of pre-blueprinting. I don't think I'm the greatest at making up a blueprint on the fly, so this lets me kind of tinker with them and come up with something that I think is fun to show, and then kind of move on from there. Do I want to do it this way? Do I want to have my copper going off to this side or the other side? I would actually like it to go off to that side. So this will be something like that. No, I have water below, so I'm going to go with my initial plan. And the initial plan also, coincidentally, I happen to set up my miners in the perfect way so that I just kind of paste over this. Oh, and I clearly have a whole bunch of copper that I have to dispose of, so I will try and get rid of that. Don't even have enough coal for it. So this mining pattern. This mining pattern that I've come up with is kind of funky. It tries to be relatively easy to build. So all the miners are laid out in a line. I came up with one that had them kind of like in a wave before, and that was cool, but odd. So I'm just going to do it like this. No, I want this out here. But what it really is intended to do is let me get away without using any underground belts. So underground belts use up 10 transport belts, 10 iron plates. That's pretty expensive in this very early phase. Underground pipes, on the other hand, only use 10 pipes and 5 iron plates. So significantly cheaper to, if you're going to have to hop, which I'm going to have to do, to get water and then all the places that I'm going to extract copper from, it's significantly better to do that by using underground pipes rather than underground belts. And in general, going forward, that's something I'm going to kind of pay attention to. Like, there's a point where, yeah, everything is kind of cheap, even though infrastructure is expensive. Sorry, let me amend that. Belts and inserters are cheap compared to the costs of many other things in the game. That said, it's still kind of a good idea to keep an eye on what you're spending, because in Pyanodons you can end up in a case where you have are basically building infrastructure to build more infrastructure to build more infrastructure because you're overbuilding. And if you're overbuilding, you end up with, like a massive factory that the whole point is just to build more factory rather than to progress and make more science. And this is especially bad in Pyanodons because in Pyanodons, the technologies as you get up give you access to much better and more efficient recipes and different ways to do things. So getting kind of stuck in a place where you're just building factory and not making progressing your technology is one way to how to put it. I mean, you don't make progress, and I want to make progress, especially with the technology costs involved in this playthrough. Making progress is the challenge, so I don't want to be just building base to build more base. Anyway, that little lecture aside, what I actually need to do is bring a bunch of coal down here to feed to that copper mine. We'll just use the one that we've already built up here because there's plenty of coal to go around on that belt. And over here. Try to remember which side of the thing that I need to put it on. It needs to go over here on that side. Build a few more inserters, and away we go. Well, once the copper, the coal gets down here. Another nice thing about this particular setup is going to be that I will be able to use the coal that's coming down on this and kind of feed it into my furnaces. I need about 7. Yeah, that's about right. Here's another little tip that I should show off. So small parts is kind of the basis of literally everything in the early game. Like you'll use small parts to make inserters, to make mining, to make most of the buildings, to make belts. And because you're going to be relying on yourself to handcraft, you should just keep building more small parts. Now, I do have a mod that lets me grab something into my cursor and make more of the thing that I've got under my cursor. So I'm going to have to kind of remind myself that, you know, like if I'm off doing something, a great way to spend my character's free internal power generation is to make more small parts. And now I've made a bunch, and now like these inserters will get made super quick. I have to remind myself to again use the filter. Oh, by the way, I've got Filter Helper installed, and this is probably the greatest UL mod that I've ever seen, because it lets you, if you've got the inserter set up to point at a building or point to a belt, basically say, okay, well, these are the items that can only possibly be created by this recipe that's on this furnace, for instance, and therefore, you know, like, rather than picking from the massive, like, this is tiny compared to what Pyanodons will look like once I've gone through a bunch of technology. It will only show the options that are available. So yeah, Filter Helper is amazing. I love that particular mod. So yeah, okay. I can come down here and set up a few inserters to feed some boxes, and then we're in business. Okay, so what's nice about this pattern is I can just move this pattern up here, stagger it, because I want to kind of avoid the pipe that's coming down, so it will be on a different line. So get rid of those. Get rid of the copper. And I should be able to... Oh, put my line too far away. I'll fix that in a moment. Like for instance, I will be able to use a different underground from the same pipeline to feed this set of miners, and then another one up here. These miners up here will be putting ash into the same lane as the copper here, which is okay. As long as I've got only 5 miners feeding that one lane, there's going to be enough room for the ash. And of course, I have to make sure to pull ash off the end of this belt. I'm going to do this in a bit when I get ash processing in the first place, but for now, yeah, things are looking pretty good. Now, yeah, I've got my copper, coal, and iron plates all automated. I have not done any technology, but that's going to be kind of the next step now that I've got some basic resources. And that's going to be what we work on during next session. Hopefully you've enjoyed this very, very early look at Pyanodons Hard Mode. There's nothing too crazy that you've seen yet, but trust me, it's going to get wild in the future. And I'm looking forward to you joining me for next episode. Thank you very much. See you later.